Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Ashes in the Past. Beyond the pages of history lie forgotten people, lost civilizations, and remarkable events. Today, we'll uncover one of those untold stories together. Let's begin. Look around you for a moment. A bottle of mouthwash. A roll of bubble wrap. A microwave. Sticky notes on a desk. A bottle of cola in the refrigerator. These are some of the most familiar objects in modern life. But here's the surprising part. Many of them were never meant to exist in the form we know today. Some began as failed experiments. Others were designed to solve completely different problems. A few were discovered by pure accident. Yet instead of disappearing into history, they found entirely new purposes, and went on to change millions of lives. Today, we'll uncover 10 everyday items that became famous for something their inventors never intended. Together, they reveal one remarkable truth. History's greatest inventions aren't always the ones that succeed as planned. One of the most famous examples began inside a pharmaceutical laboratory. Scientists were testing a new drug, hoping it would treat heart-related chest pain. The results were disappointing. The medicine wasn't doing what researchers had expected. But patients kept reporting one very unusual side effect. It was so unexpected that the entire direction of the project changed. We'll come back to that story. Years earlier, two inventors proudly introduced what they believed would be the next big trend in home decoration. Their new product was designed as a textured wallpaper. The idea seemed promising. The market disagreed. It was a complete commercial failure. Yet that same invention would eventually become one of the most recognizable packaging materials in the world. How did that happen? We'll find out soon. Then there's a drink known in nearly every country on Earth. Today, it's enjoyed at restaurants, sporting events, and family gatherings. But when it was first created, it wasn't intended to be a soft drink at all. Its inventor believed it belonged somewhere very different. So how did a medicinal tonic become one of the world's most recognizable beverages? That story is just ahead. These are only the beginning. Over the course of this documentary, we'll discover how failed adhesives became office essentials, laboratory accidents transformed cooking forever, and overlooked inventions found extraordinary new lives. Because sometimes, history's greatest breakthroughs don't happen when everything goes according to plan. They happen when someone sees possibility in failure. Sometimes, an invention doesn't fail because it's poorly made. It fails because the world has no use for it, yet. That was exactly the problem facing two engineers in 1957. They had created a new kind of textured plastic covering, convinced it would become the next trend in wallpaper. Instead, customers ignored it. The product was expensive, difficult to install, and simply didn't catch on. For most inventors, that would have been the end. But instead of throwing the idea away, they kept searching for another use. Then, a company began looking for a lightweight material that could protect delicate products during shipping. Suddenly, those tiny air-filled bubbles made perfect sense. The failed wallpaper became bubble wrap, one of the most widely used packaging materials in the world. It was the same invention. Only its purpose had changed. And bubble wrap wasn't alone. Another household favorite also began with wallpaper. But this time, it wasn't meant to decorate walls. It was meant to clean them. In the 1930s, homes were heated with coal. Coal smoke left a layer of soot on wallpaper, and washing it with water often damaged the paper. To solve the problem, a soft, moldable cleaning compound was created. It worked remarkably well. Then the world changed. As cleaner heating systems replaced coal, wallpaper no longer collected thick layers of soot. Almost overnight, the product became obsolete. Its future looked bleak. Until one schoolteacher noticed something. The cleaning compound was soft, non-toxic, easy to shape, and didn't stain children's hands. Instead of cleaning walls, it became a toy. Renamed Play-Doh, it found a second life in classrooms and homes around the world. 2 inventions. 2 complete failures. Both rescued because someone looked beyond their original purpose. But sometimes, a product doesn't need a new industry. It simply needs a new audience. That was the case for a liquid first developed in the late 19th century. Its name was Listerine. Originally introduced as a surgical antiseptic, it was later used to disinfect wounds and even clean medical instruments. It was effective. But its biggest success hadn't arrived yet. At the beginning of the 20th century, the company discovered an entirely different market, one that existed in almost every home. Before long, Listerine was no longer known primarily as a medical antiseptic. It had become one of the world's most recognizable mouthwashes. 3 very different products. One surprising pattern. Success didn't come from perfect planning. It came from recognizing an opportunity no one expected. And nowhere is that lesson more surprising than inside a laboratory where one failed experiment accidentally created one of the strongest adhesives ever discovered. By now, a pattern was beginning to emerge. Some inventions failed because they solved the wrong problem. Others succeeded because someone paid attention to an unexpected result. Few examples illustrate that better than super glue. During World War II, scientists were searching for materials that could be used in precision gun sights. One experimental chemical showed an unusual property. It stuck to almost everything it touched. Glass, metal, skin, laboratory equipment. It was so incredibly sticky that researchers considered it a nuisance rather than a breakthrough. For the military project, it was useless. The material was set aside and largely forgotten. Years later, researchers revisited it and realized that the very characteristic that had made it unsuitable for gun sights made it perfect as an adhesive. The failed military material became superglue, a product now found in homes, workshops, hospitals, and industries around the world. But that wasn't the only laboratory accident that changed everyday life. In 1945, engineer Percy Spencer was working with radar equipment when he noticed something unusual. A chocolate bar in his pocket had melted. At first, he thought it was a coincidence. So he tried another experiment. He placed popcorn kernels near the machine. They popped. Then he tried an egg. It quickly heated until it burst. The invisible energy produced by the radar equipment was cooking food. That accidental observation led to the invention of the microwave oven, transforming kitchens across the globe. Sometimes, however, the surprise wasn't heat. It was chemistry. In 1938, chemist Roy Plunkett was attempting to develop a new refrigerant. When he opened one of his gas cylinders, nothing came out. The experiment appeared to have failed. Curious, he cut the cylinder open. Inside was a strange white substance unlike anything he expected. It was extremely slippery, highly resistant to heat, and remarkably unreactive with other chemicals. The material became known as Teflon. Today, It's used not only in non-stick cookware but also in aerospace, electronics, medicine, and countless industrial applications. 3 discoveries. A failed military project. A melted chocolate bar. An experiment that seemed to produce nothing at all. None of them achieved what their creators originally intended. Yet each transformed the modern world in ways no one could have predicted. But perhaps the greatest example of turning failure into success wasn't discovered in a factory or a laboratory. It began with an adhesive that was considered too weak to be useful. And that failure would eventually become one of the most recognizable office supplies ever created. Most inventors dream of creating something stronger. A stronger engine. A stronger material. A stronger adhesive. At 3M, one scientist was trying to do exactly that. Instead, he accidentally created the opposite. The adhesive stuck to surfaces, but only lightly. It could be peeled away without leaving much residue and used again. For the project, it was a disappointment. No one could think of a practical use for it. The invention sat on a shelf for years. Then another 3M employee, Art Fry, encountered a simple, everyday problem. While singing in his church choir, the paper bookmarks in his hymn book kept falling out. He remembered the unusual adhesive and had an idea. What if a piece of paper could stick securely enough to stay in place, yet be removed without damaging the page? The result became the Post-it note. One of the world's most recognizable office supplies was born not from a powerful invention, but from one that was considered too weak. Around the same time, another accidental discovery was made, not by looking at paper, but by tasting dinner. In 1879, chemist Konstantin Fallberg was working in a laboratory when he returned home for a meal. As he ate, he noticed something unusual. His bread tasted unexpectedly sweet. The sweetness wasn't coming from the food. It was coming from a chemical residue still on his fingers. Back in the laboratory, he traced the source to a compound he had synthesized earlier that day. It became known as saccharin, the first widely used artificial sweetener. A simple mistake, forgetting to wash his hands, led to a discovery that would influence food and medicine for generations. By now, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Bubble wrap was never meant to protect packages. Play-Doh wasn't created for children. Listerine wasn't designed as mouthwash. Superglue wasn't supposed to be glue. The microwave wasn't invented to cook dinner. Teflon wasn't developed for frying pans. Post-it notes came from a failed adhesive. Saccharin was discovered by accident. Different inventors. Different decades. Different industries. Yet they all point to the same lesson. Sometimes the most valuable discovery isn't the one you're searching for. It's the one you almost overlook. And nowhere is that more obvious than in the story of 2 products that became global icons after abandoning the purpose they were originally created to serve. By now, one question remains. What happens when an invention doesn't just find a new purpose, but completely changes the world? Few products illustrate that better than Coca-Cola. In 1886, pharmacist John Stith Pemberton created a flavored syrup that he marketed as a medicinal tonic. Like many patent medicines of the era, it was promoted as a remedy for a variety of ailments rather than simply as a refreshment. But people enjoyed its taste just as much as its claimed health benefits. Mixed with carbonated water, the drink quickly became popular for an entirely different reason. Over time, the medicinal claims disappeared. The beverage remained. Today, Coca-Cola is recognized around the world, not as medicine, but as one of the most iconic soft drinks ever created. Our final story began in another laboratory, nearly a century later. Researchers were testing a new drug intended to improve blood flow and treat angina, a type of chest pain caused by reduced blood supply to the heart. The results were disappointing. The medicine wasn't especially effective for its intended purpose. But during clinical trials, doctors noticed a consistent and unexpected side effect. Instead of discarding the drug, researchers investigated further. That unexpected effect proved to be far more valuable than the original goal. The medicine became Viagra, transforming the treatment of erectile dysfunction and helping millions of people around the world. It remains one of the best-known examples of a drug finding success through an entirely different medical application. Looking back, it's remarkable how many everyday items followed the same path. Bubble wrap failed as wallpaper before protecting fragile packages. Play-Doh stopped cleaning walls and started inspiring children's creativity. Listerine left the operating room for the bathroom cabinet. Superglue emerged from a failed military project. A melted chocolate bar led to the microwave oven. An unexpected chemical reaction produced Teflon. A weak adhesive became the Post-it note. A forgotten taste led to saccharin. A medicinal tonic became Coca-Cola. A heart medicine found a completely different purpose as Viagra. None of these inventions became famous because everything went according to plan. They became famous because someone paid attention when the unexpected happened. History often celebrates brilliant ideas. But these stories remind us that curiosity is just as important. The greatest breakthroughs don't always come from getting everything right. Sometimes they come from asking a simple question after something goes wrong. What else could this become? The next time you pop bubble wrap, heat a meal in the microwave, jot down a note, or open a bottle of cola, remember, you're not just using an everyday product. You're holding the result of an accident, a failure, or a second chance that someone refused to ignore. And perhaps that's history's greatest invention of all. The ability to see opportunity where everyone else sees a mistake.